Dr. Zia Ahmed YouTube channel. In today's small video, we are going to discuss one story, short story, which is originally written by Khalid Hassan Manto, and it is in his book of short stories, Kingdoms and Other Stories. This story was written in Urdu, but later on it has been translated by Khalid Hassan. Right? The story has its own start, and that is with reference to the name Toba Tek Singh. So the title of the story is Toba Tek Singh, and it has been translated from Urdu to English by Khalid Hassan. Toba Tek Singh is a very famous name of a town near Faisalabad, division of Punjab province in Pakistan, and it can be the name of a person also, as it goes to suggest Toba Tek Singh. So possibly it was the name of a person also. But what is that short story, and what is the purpose of writing it? We have to look into the short story not with reference to the discussion on a person or discussion on a town. We need to look at this short story with reference to the partition which took place in India in 1947, and new state of Pakistan was created in the subcontinent. There are various implications on which Manto has reflected, and here he very symbolically talks about the influence of this partition. How did the people react to that? What was the influence on the people? That can be one of the themes of this short story. So let us enter into the short story and read selected passages of the short story. For example, the very first passage is here. It says, a couple of years after the partition of the country, it occurred to the respective governments of India and Pakistan that inmates of lunatic asylums, like prisoners, should also be exchanged. Muslim lunatics in India should be transferred to Pakistan, and Hindu and Sikh lunatics in Pakistani asylums should be sent to India. So the very first passage goes to reflect something very strange, very different from the other short stories, that this short story is going to be about the inhabitants and inmates of a lunatic asylum, एक पागल खाने के लोगों का. So in that way, the partition plan was to divide assets of the army, of the other treasuries, and the police, and so many other things as the land was divided. And Manto very humorously and ironically says that the mad people, the lunatics, should also be exchanged in that sense. So that is why the decision was made by both the governments that the lunatics should also be exchanged. Now, who are these lunatics? Who are these people who are mad? And why they are being exchanged? That is the question to be settled while we read the story. So let's proceed further. Go to this passage to have more understanding of this story. While it is not known what the reaction in India was when the news reached the Lahore lunatic asylum, it immediately became the subject of heated discussion. One Muslim lunatic, a regular reader of the fire-eating daily newspaper Zamidar, when asked what Pakistan was, replied after deep reflection, the name of a place in India where cutthroat razors are manufactured. So this is the statement of the first lunatic when the news reached to the lunatic asylum situated in Lahore that the lunatics which belong to India are to be transported to India. At that time, one question was asked to the Muslim lunatic. The same question was asked, and he said that Pakistan is a place where razors are made, cutthroat razors, with the help of which the people can be cut, people can be killed. And he was the reader of Zamidar. Now the question is that how a lunatic can read a newspaper, Zamidar, and how he can make such a beautiful statement about the partition which has resulted in the deaths of so many people. So that is the type of style Manto has to describe about the partition, and Khalid Hassan with his translation has significantly highlighted this thing. Actually, lunatic is used here as a symbol which the people most of the time take that they are senseless. But in fact, these senseless people have their senses as well. And how they were taking the partition as an independent person, neither belonging to Pakistan nor to India, and not behaving like those who claim to have senses, the opinion is given by those people in this sense. So that is the second passage which gives us a reflection on the people who were lunatics and what they were saying when the division of the asylum was to be announced. And then the third passage, not all inmates were mad, some were perfectly normal, except that they were murderers. To spare them the hangman's noose, their families had managed to get them committed after bribing officials down the line. They probably had a vague idea why India was being divided and what Pakistan was, but as for the present situation, they were equally clueless. Now, here another uh, problem or the issue of corruption has been discussed about the justice system of that time when Manto is writing. According to Manto, some inmates in the asylum were not mad at all, they were murderers. But they were brought to asylum by supposing them to be murderers so that they could be saved from the hanging or the punishment which could come from the judge because of the murder taking place. So, such lunatics were also there. They could be called semi lunatics. But because of the confinement, they were unable to have any view of the partition. They were unable to understand the situation. So, that is why they did not know what was happening because of the divide. Now, the question is, why would non lunatic people know everything and the lunatics would not know? Lunatics would know everything and the non lunatics would not know anything at all. So, that goes to point out that what and where the sense was and how the symbol of lunatics has been used by Manto. Same as the case with this passage, one inmate had got so badly caught up in this India Pakistan India rigmarole that one day, while sweeping the floor, he dropped everything, climbed the nearest tree, and installed himself in the branch from which vantage was the point. He spoke for 2 hours on the delicate problem of India and Pakistan. The guards asked him to get down. Instead, he went a branch higher, and when threatened with punishment, declared, "I wish to live neither in India nor in Pakistan. I wish to live in this tree." So, in order to make the story sound more realistic, some of the real lunatic movement have also been pointed out by the writer. For example, here, when one inmate of lunatic asylum says that he is not understanding all that and he leaves his work and all of a sudden climbs the tree and remains there for a long time, for 2 hours continuously speaks there. Only a lunatic possibly can do this. And when he's threatened to come down, he declares that he would not be going to Pakistan or he would not be going to India, he would like to stay there. So this reflects about the thinking of certain people, that to whom or to which type of people Pakistan belonged or to which type of people India belonged. These people are being reflected here, that there were some people to whom neither did India belong nor did Pakistan belong. That is why they would say that they are neither Indian nor Pakistani. They would like to live in between these two spaces. The third space they would like to live. Here, the minorities or the communities which were not taken as the mainstream communities, that can be represented, that can be shown. And the will of the people also, whether they wanted India or Pakistan, that has also been portrayed, that some of them at all did not want to live either in India or in Pakistan, they just wanted to live. Here is another paragraph. There was a young Hindu lawyer from Lahore who had gone off his head after an unhappy love affair. When told that Amritsar was to become a part of India, he went into a depression because his beloved lived in Amritsar, something he had not forgotten. Even in his madness that day, he abused every major and minor Hindu and Muslim leader who had cut India into two, turning his beloved into an Indian and him into a Pakistani. Now, this is the case of romance, of course, but this is the case of love matters between long standing brotherhood of the people of India and Pakistan, that they have been living together. But because of partition, they became the enemies of each other and they had to become either Pakistani or Indian. One or two movies have also been developed in India on this partition, that some people belong to same city, but when the partition took place, one of them had to be displaced, and that is why the lovers could not meet. Same is the case here, that the lovers, people who loved each other, they had to be divided because one person, because of his Muslimhood, another person, because of his Hinduhood, became belonging to different countries, and as a result, the love had to die. So that is why one of the lunatic, when he listens to this news and becomes mad, here is referred that he was a lawyer, he was an advocate, but now he was so sad and upset that he blamed everyone because he was unable to have his beloved because of the divide that had taken place. So divide has affected so many and many type of people in many dimensional ways. That is the purpose of the writer, to let us be acquainted with. And in the same tone, writer continues, and the interesting passage that possibly we can find may be available on this page. Once a month, he used to have visitors, but since the start of communal troubles in Punjab, they had stopped coming. His real name was Bishan Singh, but everybody called him Toba Tek Singh. He lived in a kind of limbo, having no idea what the day of the week it was or month or how many years had passed since his confinement. However, he had developed a sixth sense about day of the visit. He used to bathe himself, soap his body, oil and comb his hair, and put on clean clothes. He never said a word during these meetings, except occasional outbursts of upper the gurgur, the annex, the bay, dhyana, bedhyana, the moong, the dal, the laltan. So this is the passage which is, connected with the title of the story and the man about whom possibly the story is going to be. So he's also a lunatic. He's also in the lunatic asylum. When he is put the question or he's introduced to us who he is, he's told by the writer to be a lunatic, and he didn't know the timing, the day, or any other thing about him. But when his people were expected to come, without having any knowledge, he used to prepare himself or take bath, and after that he would wear the clean clothes also. It was called a sixth sense. So in a way, he was not totally a mad person, but we were declaring him mad. We also come to know that his real name was Bishan Singh, and he used to speak also the type of English which most of the Indian at that time would speak by mixing it with the Urdu words, like it is upar the gud gud, yani upar se meetha hai, the annexe, the be, the de dhyana, or the people who don't know about anything, the moong the dal of the laltan, and then he attaches to more expression, that is the moong dal and the laltan, the light. This is a meaningless sentence, but it goes to convey something that whatever life is going to be, perhaps it seems to be very good, but actually it is not. It is just like a dal, just like a little light, one can say. So this is the topic of the title of the story which is reflected in this passage. So let us see what more is being told about Toba Tek Singh. We see in page 14 and 15 Toba Tek Singh has been introduced, and then the ending page 16 is here. When the buses were taken, were ready in order to take these lunatics to the borders so that they can be divided. At that time, the story grows to its final end, where we find Bishan Singh begged God to issue the necessary orders so that his problem could be solved, but he was disappointed as God appeared to be preoccupied with more pressing matters. Finally, he told him angrily, Upar the Gudgur, the Naksi, the Moong the Dal of Guruji, the Khalsa and Guruji ki Fateh, Jo Bole Sonihal Sat Sri Akal. And what he wanted to say was, you don't answer my prayers because you are a Muslim God. Had you been a Sikh God, you would have been more of a support. So this passage goes to tell us that he had a problem, that he wanted to know where is Toba Tek Singh. Either it is in Pakistan or in India. Being confined to the asylum, he didn't know that. He asked this question to everyone, but nobody was able to answer him where it was. And when he found no answer, he was baffled, and that is why he said that if it had been a Sikh God, possibly he might have come across the information where is Toba Tek Singh. But because of the absence of that Sikh God, he is feeling like that. So he expresses himself in again disconnected and a type of English, which is mixed with Urdu and Punjabi. That English he tries to talk. And the basic purpose is to let us know that there was no possibility of the solution of the problems of the Sikh people and other people in general. So when these borders were there and people were brought on the borders so that they can be handed over to the respective countries, at that time also many interesting things takes place. For example, on a cold winter evening, buses full of Hindu and Sikh lunatics, accompanied by armed police and officials, began moving out of the Lahore asylum towards Wagah, the dividing line between India and Pakistan. Senior officials from the two sides in charge of the exchange arrangements met signed documents, and the transfer got underway. It was quite a job getting the men out of buses and handing them over to officials. Some just refused to leave. These who were persuaded to do so began to run pell-mell in every direction. Some were stark naked. All efforts to get them to cover themselves had failed because they couldn't be kept from tearing off their garments. Some were shouting abuse or singing. Others were weeping bitterly. Many fights broke out. So that on the border is the situation where the lunatics of asylum are present, and they had to be offloaded from the buses, but it was very difficult to do so because they were mad people. They were running here and there, crying, weeping, and some were naked, and so there was a lot of confusion. So this paragraph goes to tell or symbolize the partition time when people were moving from one part of the land to the other part. At that time, a lot of confusion, a lot of issue, a lot of problem was there. Nobody knew anything at that time, but it was simply a divide, and the people had to go from one place to the other. So the representation of that confusion, of the divide, and the people who were so much upset because of that, this has been indicated in this paragraph very beautifully by the translator as well as by the writer of the story. And this is bringing us now to the end of this story, where we find again something which the Toba Tek Singh was doing. Remember that one of the qualities of Toba Tek Singh was that he never would lie down or sit down. He would constantly stand up, and because of constant standing up, his legs were sore up. So many efforts were made to explain to him that Toba Tek Singh had already been moved to India or would be moved immediately, but had no effect on Bishan Singh. The guards even tried force but soon gave up. There he stood in no man's land on his swollen legs like a colossus. Since he was harmless old man, no further attempts were made to push him into India. He was allowed to stand where he wanted while the exchange continued. The night wore on. Just before sunrise, Bishan Singh, the man who had stood on his legs for 15 years, screamed, and as officials from the two sides rushed towards him, he collapsed to the ground. Behind barbed wire on one side lay India, and behind more barbed wire on the other side lay Pakistan. In between, on a bit of earth which had no name, lay Toba Tek Singh. So this is the death scene of Toba Tek Singh when he had refused to, be controlled by the officials and be transported to India, because Toba Tek Singh, as a man, was the part of India. He wanted to go there, but he didn't want to leave the place where he was born, brought up as Bishan Singh. So that is why he refused to go there. He continuously stood there, wept and cried, and so people left him. Okay, they said it's an old man, possibly he's not a source of trouble, so that's why he should be left. But when the night passed, at that time he is a cry, and the people ran in order to see him. When he was crying and screaming, people saw that he was collapsed on the ground after 15 years of standing on his legs. And when he died, at that time it could be seen that he died in between two states, India and Pakistan. Both were widely separated. Wires were present for the separation of borders, but Toba Tek Singh was lying in between. So the people who did not want this divide, their story is here. The people who wanted to, maintain their own identity, but because of the new states, their identity was disturbed. That identity is maintained, but only after the death. So this is the short story, Toba Tek Singh, written by Manto, Khalid Hassan Manto, but it is translated by Khalid Hassan, and that one is situated in our syllabus. No, but in fact, this is the story that can be replaced with any other prose. So that is why it has been done so. The students may be enjoying by revisiting the matter of partition once again and the situation of the people represented through these lunatics. The hallmark of the story is that it does not convey the opinion of the people who had rationality or who had senses, but from the point of view of the mad people, because it was so easy that through the narration of the mad people, it was so easy for the writer to convey his point of view. So thank you for watching. Hope to see you next time in some next video. So do not fail to hit the subscribe button and like button also. Thank you for watching.